Good evening. I am back. I apologize for the way I look today and for wearing my robe. Um, Unfortunately, I have no idea what happened to my video or this part of the testimony that I'm going to be doing today. I have no idea what happened to it. I had it on my phone. I had already finished it. I went to church yesterday. In fact, I talked about what I'm working on right now. Church, I gave like a small little testimony, and I was telling everybody in my church that I can wait to show them once I uploaded all my videos and finish it so I can share my testimony. And apparently I couldn't find it, so that's why I am today here doing this part of my testimony in my robe and the way I look, just because I really, really, really want to finish it, because after I finish this one, I'm going to be uploading it and sharing it, but I also want to start doing my testimony in Spanish. So I apologize in advance for my broken English in some parts of the videos, and also for my ugly crying face. I am a very emotional person, and I tend to cry a lot especially when it comes to stuff like this, so I apologize for it. I apologize because in the next video, you're going to see a lot of crying too. So I'm sorry. It's just what it is, I just want to give the Lord all the glory, all the honor with this video. And the purpose of this video is to hopefully touch some lives out there that are going through something similar. Like I said in my previous video, something similar. Or if not, just to touch people's lives. And so people could know, like, what an awesome God we have. Like, everything he does in our life is for a reason, for a purpose. Sometimes we don't understand why we go through some trials and tribulations, but he knows what he's doing, exactly what he's doing. He allows us to go through them because he uses this for his purpose. So we all have a purpose in life, if you didn't think we did. But I will begin my testimony where I left off the last time, and I believe it was when I had gone out partying with my sister. We had gone to her apartment. I'd got in the room. I was feeling lonely after partying, having fun. Now, and that happened to me constantly. I would get home, and after partying, I was like having so much fun. But once I got home and I was alone, I'd just be like, man, like, what is wrong with me? Why that emptiness here? Why that emptiness? I just feel empty, lonely, not happy. And then the weekend would come, I'd go out and I'd be, so happy. Then I'd get home again, and then worthless, lonely. And of course, I had an empty heart. Like, there was a big void in there. So I remember going to sleep. I went to sleep, and I had a very, very vivid dream. I had a dream that I was at this house. I have no idea whose house it was. But I was at this house, and there was nobody else in the house. There was nobody outside. It's like in this dream, it was just myself at that moment. And so I started having a dream that I was in this house, and then all of a sudden I heard the trumpets. I heard a trumpet noise. And I remember, obviously my mom talked to me about like the trumpets of Jesus is coming, how he's going to come down from the sky and through the clouds. And my mom had explained to me things here and there, I only knew what I knew because of her. And then, but in this, in this dream, like, I heard the trumpets, and it was pretty loud, and it came to my mind. I got up from that couch where I was sitting, and it came to my mind, is this the trumpets that my mom was talking about? Is this like the coming of Jesus? I hope it's not. Oh my gosh. At this time, I was just thinking it in my mind. And I remember walking up to one of the windows, and I looked out, and there was nobody outside, and I was afraid to look up. And then I ended up looking up to the sky. I didn't see anything. And then I was like, okay, well, did I hear wrong? Because at that time I had already stopped. And I'm like, maybe I didn't hear right, or maybe it's just God trying to tell me something. And then all of a sudden, again, as I'm sitting in this couch, I hear the trumpets for the second time. And this time I heard it a little louder and it lasted a little longer. And in my dream, I was like, oh my goodness, like, is this what my mom is talking about? The Lord is coming. Jesus is coming. Jesus is coming. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Like, I was like afraid to go look out the window, but I thought, what, I'm going to go check. I walked towards this window and I look out. There's nobody. Then I was afraid to look up, but I remember I looked up and there was nothing. The sky was nice and blue. You could see the clouds. And I was like, this is so weird. Why do I keep on hearing the trumpets? The Lord's trying to tell me something. Oh my gosh. What if, I hear it again and now this time he's coming. And I remember I was starting to panic. I was really starting to panic and I thought, oh my goodness, if he was to come, what am I going to do? Or I'm not ready. And then it stopped, obviously. And then all of a sudden I hear it for the third time. And this time I heard the trumpets like extremely, extremely loud. And it was lasting like long, long, long time. And it was like, dun, 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 dun. I mean, I honestly can still remember the sound of the trumpets really, really, like it was just yesterday. And this has been like years. And I was like, oh my goodness, no, the Lord is coming. The Lord is coming. That's the third time. What if third time's the charm and he is there? And I was like so afraid. This time I was like really, really scared in my dream, like to go walk out and look out the window. I was really, really scared. It's like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to see him and I'm done. I'm basically done. So in my dream, I started walking towards the window, the same window, and I looked like forward. I didn't see anybody, nothing. I was like so afraid to look like up to the sky. And then obviously there was nobody there. And then when I looked up, then that's where I saw Jesus. And I can picture it right now exactly how I had that vivid dream. He was like coming down from the sky. He was coming down through the clouds. And he was like, just his body looked all straight, like straight. His feet were like very, very close to each other, almost kind of a little bit on top of one foot over the other one a little bit. And he had a white robe. I could see like the hair was like curly and up to kind of like mine, long like mine, like this, and like curly. And I want to say this part, I want to say like a little tiny little bandana or something here, something going around. And then he had a white robe. And then I forgot the word of what this is called, but across his body, but it was red. And when I saw him coming down, like I literally like started screaming. I started crying. I was like, no. I remember going like this. No, he's here. Like, I'm not saved. I'm like, I'm not going to heaven. I'm going to go to hell. Like, I chose not to follow him. And like, I was like really, really, really scared. And I still could hear like the trumpets loud, very, very, very loud. It was nonstop. And then obviously I got myself back to the couch again. And I remember I sat there and I was just crying and crying. I said, the Lord is here. The Lord is here. Like, what's going to happen with me? What's going to happen with me? And all of a sudden, like, I woke up and I just woke up and I was just bawling. I was just crying. I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is real. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, and honestly, it wasn't like I was like doing like super, super bad stuff, like sinning like really bad and stuff like that. But just the fact that I just didn't have Jesus in my life, if I knew about Jesus, obviously I didn't know like every single thing about Jesus, but I knew about him. But I just decided it wasn't time for me to follow him yet. And it was only like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot in and 1 out, either cold or hot. And I had those days and it's just like, the Lord doesn't want this. He wants you either all in or all out. You miss out if you're out. But, you will live forever if you choose to follow him. But at that time, I just was like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? I woke up, I was like, I told my sister, and then obviously my sister took me to pick up my kids with my mom. And when I got to my mom's, I told her what happened. I said, hey mom, I gotta tell you what happened to me. And she's like, what happened? So I just told her, I'm like, I had this dream, and I explained to her the whole thing, and I couldn't even talk about it. Like, I was like literally crying. And my mom was like, she had a smile on her face, and she's like, yep, that's the Lord. Like, the Lord's trying to talk to you and say something to you. Like, do you know in the Bible it talks about, dreams and visions? And she gave me the Bible verse. She started talking to me, like reading it to me in Spanish, which I have it here in English, and I'm going to read it to you. The book of Acts, verse 2. I'm sorry, chapter 2:17. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with me. 2:17. It will be in the last days, says God, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream. And my mom read me off this Bible verse, and she's like, yeah, like the Holy Spirit is talking to you through a dream. You can use people, a vision, like anything. In this case, he's talking to you through this dream that he sent you. And then I started thinking about this dream, about the dove and everything. And as I started to learn more and more, now, this Bible verse came to my mind, Matthew 3:16. Jesus, when he was baptized, went up directly from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him. He saw the Spirit of God descending as a dove and coming out of here. So the dove, kind of for me, obviously symbolizes the Holy Spirit. And it's just when you start thinking about these kind of things, I'm like, wow, it's like everything comes together. But it's just how amazing how the Lord talks to you, even through dreams, visions. So that happened to me. And you would have thought okay, she's going to change. This is the part where she's going to say she went to church now. She surrendered to the Lord. She had a good relationship with him. No, unfortunately, I still didn't listen. So anyways, I told my mom, I said, okay, mom, I promise you I'm going to go with you to church. I'm going to, get good with the Lord. But I have one more outing. Either it was a Friday or Saturday. I'm like, one more outing to go to. I'm going to go to a party. That's my last party. I promise you. And blah, blah, blah. And my mom just had a smile on her face. And she's like, you're not going. It's not going to happen. And I'm like, mom. And I was everything my mom would pray for, literally it would happen because she has a lot of faith. And I was like, mom, don't you dare to pray for this. And she was just laughing. She's like, oh, you're not going to go. They're not going to pick you up. Watch. And then I was like, no, mom, don't do that. Honestly, I promise you, this is my last outing, blah, blah, blah. Well, come that Friday or Saturday, they were supposed to pick us up, and they didn't pick us up. I didn't even get a call hey, we're not showing up to pick you up. Nothing. They just didn't show up. I was all dressed up. I was so disappointed. I was so upset. And I called my mom, it was your fault. But anyways, so after that situation, obviously, I started going in with my mom to church. But like I said, it was just off and on. Some days, yes. Some weekends, yes. Some weekends, not. And then I know my mom started doing some prayer nights, prayer groups at her home. And that was really nice because I started learning more and more. But I wasn't 100% with the Lord, if it makes sense. So yes. So after that, I ended up getting my apartment with my two kids and myself. I got myself through school to become a medical assistant because I was just getting tired of that job that I had from 6 to 6. It was just really rough, working at an assembly line and 12-hour shifts, and money's money. I needed it because I needed to support my kids, and I got to do as a mom. I had to do what I had to do, but I didn't know how to drive, like I said. So depending on rides, it was tough. And doing laundry. Like I would push the stroller full of all the clothes and the two kids on each side, hand wash. Like I did like everything I could, um, obviously not giving up anymore, like at that time. And I was like really trying. So one of my sisters had an idea. It's like, you know what, we should all go back to school. We all like the medical field. So my twin sister and I went in to school for medical assistant. And then my older sister for a medical receptionist. So that was about a 10-month program, 11 months. And we graduated. I graduated with honors. And then after, that's where I met my husband now, my wonderful husband. And see how my eyes light up. Yes, I met my husband there. It was like we got to know each other. We started dating kind of pretty soon. I always said, like, I'm not gonna be with nobody else after what I went through with my ex-husband. Like, I'm not ready, blah blah blah. But hey, the Lord had something else for me. So I met my husband now there. We started dating. He actually lived like a couple blocks away from my house. So like we would visit each other. Like I'd walk over there with the kids and like visit him. Then he'd come and visit me. And we were just going like back and forth, visiting each other. And then, so yeah, once I met him, then obviously I came out pregnant from our last one, the one that's 22 right now. And we had his, mine, and ours. And I ended up graduating. I went back 2 weeks before I had our last one to get my high school diploma. So I graduated from that too. So I got my diploma. That was just a goal that I had, that I wanted to do. So my sisters and I, actually, we all did it together. And so yeah, so I met my husband, and with my husband and I, we did everything like the opposite. Like we met each other, we moved in together. No, actually, no, I'm sorry. We dated, I came out pregnant, we moved in together, and then we got married. So I know it's kind of crazy the way we did things back the way we did it, but we did it that way. And so then when we moved in together, obviously I was already like back on my feet. I had, gone to school, graduated, which my goal, like, I'm not here to judge anybody, but my goal when I got government assistance, was just temporarily, because I did not want to do anything like that, but I needed it at the time. So my goal was to, as soon as I got back on my feet, is just to that amazing feeling of calling him like, hey, I don't need your services no more, So thank God, I was back on my feet. I was working, like I said, I graduated for medical assistant. My husband, and I had moved in together. So I was able to, like, I even left my apartment. Like I called and leave my apartment. And they were like, are you sure you waited on the waiting list for so long? You can't change your mind. I'm like, no, I'm like, honestly, like, go ahead and help the next person. Like, you guys helped me tremendously already. Like, I don't need your services no more. Like, I'm doing good, and thank you. And I was very, very grateful for the government assistance at the time that I got, and, insurance for the kids and everything, because that helped me get through until like I finished school, and then met my husband, and what I was saying right now. So anyway, so yeah, so my husband and I then got married. And then, I apologize, I'm just looking at my notes here. We got married, and then after that, we went through some like other stuff here and there. And I also want to thank, like, honestly, my whole family for being extremely supportive with me through all this. Like my twin sister, she was amazing. Like, always, like, she's always been a big prayer warrior, and she's always prayed for me until today. I mean, she's like, when I tell her something, like, I'll pray for you, like, I'll pray for your family, I'll pray for this, so I gotta thank the Lord for my sister in my life, because because she's always been spiritually very supportive of me. And my older sister, bless her heart, she's been like an amazing older sister. Like, I love her to death. Um, she has been extremely, extremely supportive, especially when I was like going through everything with my ex-husband. Like, she was like giving me money and helping me, and like my family, like I just want to thank the Lord because I have a great family, a very, very supportive family. Um, at the time, obviously, my other sisters, they were little, and my brothers. So, but I have wonderful brothers and sisters. But I honestly, I had my great grandmother. Like, I love my grandma. She passed away, unfortunately, but she's been like the best grandma ever. So, yeah. So, like I said, when we were, okay, after we moved in, then we got married and all that. Then after that, some things happened in between, and then we decided to move to Omaha, Nebraska. At that time, I wasn't able to go because the kids were still in school, and I had to stay. So my husband actually like flew down to Omaha, Nebraska, where my mom lived and my sisters and my grandma was at that time, and my brothers. And my husband flew down there and purchased a house. It was just like owner to owner, but he would send me videos and pictures, and bless his heart, like he did a good job like choosing a house for us. Like, I'm not picky. I don't care. Like, coming growing up, like, middle class or poor, more like poor. Like, I am very grateful for every little thing I get. Like, I am extremely grateful, because I know what it is to hand wash. I know what it is not to have food. I know like, there's been like so many struggles, and I know we all go through it, but growing up, I went through it too. So I'm just very grateful, with the Lord. So, we ended up, moving to Nebraska. And like I said, my husband like came back. He came back and gave me the keys, since we have a house. I was so happy. I went first because he was still taking care of some stuff, before he headed to Nebraska. So I went first. I started getting the house together and everything. So that was like another blessing we had, getting our house. So, yeah. So, while living there, obviously I found a church. I was going to a church, Spanish. I've always went to like a Spanish speaking church. And, I just like loved my church. I enjoyed it so much. The only thing that I never really, really thought about it, which it hurts my heart, which I've already like asked the Lord to forgive me. And I know he understands, but it was like so hard for me, like to deal with this, because my kids like forgot their Spanish. Besides, not my middle one, but all my kids literally like they don't really speak it much. And my oldest and my youngest are like the worst at it. And my husband now, he only knows a little bit of Spanish, but since he's retired military, he watched the kids all the time while I was at work. So they, little by little, they forgot their Spanish. And my mistake, where I was saying that I was feeling really bad, was like, when I was at church, they'd go to their classes, but they didn't understand anything. So when they came back from like their classes, they'd be like, "Mom, no, I don't want to go to church. It's boring. I'm not understanding." Like, the kids were struggling with that. And I did that for like quite a few years, which hurts my heart. Like, I should have thought about my kids, about like if I was going to go to church, like I should have thought about my kids too, not just myself. And then like my husband now would go, like, he didn't understand it, but he'd go off and on with me. And he always would say, he's so cute. He would say, like, "I don't understand what they're saying, but I could feel it." Like, when the worship music came, like when they would play the worship music, he'd be like, I could feel it. So, but yeah, that was tough because I didn't really like thought about those things. And then, so I decided to, well, in that process, my family, like, after being in Nebraska for quite a few years, my family, my home family, like, we went through a very devastating situation that I will not talk about here because it's extremely personal. So I'm not going to talk about it, because there's a lot of people involved. But one thing I do have to say with that is that it was like extremely, extremely hard what our family went through. It was like, if not the worst thing like that happened. And I was like devastated, and that kind of pushed me away a little bit from God. But I kind of still kept on pushing. And I decided to move to an English speaking church for the fact that I wanted my kids and like my husband to understand it. And it was called Eagle's Nest. Beautiful church, great pastors. Oh, they were like lovely. It was really, really nice church. Very nice. Started going there I think I was going there possibly like a couple weeks, if I'm correct. And then one day, the pastors there started talking about like forgiveness, about forgiving people. And then they started talking about certain situations, which was a similar situation that we had gone through. And as soon as he said that, like, I closed my heart. Like, I am like, there's no way in heck, no way I'm going to forgive. There's no way I'm going to let this go. Nope. Instead, obviously now I know, but instead of saying, Lord, help me through this, I'm not going to be able to do this alone. Like, I'm here and I'm having a hard time with this. But instead, I just quit on the Lord. And I said, nope, I refuse. I don't want to do this. I got up. I remember getting up and telling the kids, let's go. And they're like, why are we leaving? I said, no, I just don't feel like being here. But it was because our pastors were talking about forgiveness. And at the moment, I had a lot of hate in my heart. And I refused. I said, I'm not going to forgive. Anyways, I left church. And the kids would question and say, how come we're not going to church? I'm like, oh, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. Well, little by little, I just kept on giving excuses. And I never went back to church. In fact, I told my husband, I'm like, you know what? Because I was like extremely depressed. And my husband was like, he's always been, I'm like, honestly, I love my husband to death. He's been extremely supportive of me, like of a lot of my situations, like very patient, like listening to me. And at that time I was like, he knew like we were all going through hard times, but obviously he put his feelings aside because he was very hurt too. But he put it aside like to comfort me all the time because like it was really hard, but I love him and he's always been there for me when I needed him all the time. And so I told him, I said, you know what, I can't handle living here. Like, I want to move, like, not knowing, like, obviously that's not the answer to things. Like, the answer is Jesus. He's the one that's going to help us through all this. But at that time, I thought, like, oh, moving out of state, I'm going to move out of state. I'm not going to take anything with me, not knowing that wherever we would go, this was going to follow us. Obviously, it was going to follow you wherever you went because it's a situation that happened. And that was like a devastating situation. But instead of me gravitating like towards the Lord, like I pushed him away and I quit on him. I literally quit on him. And so after that, like before we moved, like my husband hadn't been talking to my mother-in-law, to his mom, for many years. They had just lost contact and they were just not talking. I was able to find her behind his back, and I went and I started like communicating with her, emailing with her, talking with her. So I honestly wanted like my mother-in-law like in my husband's life, and I wanted her in my life. And I know a lot of people are like, why would you want your mother-in-law in your life if you had already gone through like a previous one that didn't like you? But it was one of those things. I don't know. I just thought it was only fair. Like my husband had been around like all my family all the time. Like it was my mom, my sisters. Like it was always like my family. And he didn't have any of his family just because he didn't have like a close relationship with them. So anyway, to make a long story short, like my mother-in-law, I reunited my mother-in-law and my husband. My mother-in-law actually, in fact, bought the whole family tickets and flew us down to Idaho where she was living, where she's still living at the time. But she flew us all down, the whole family, to go see her. And it was like so nice to see when we got to the airport, when they saw each other and they hugged, they're like, oh, it was like a mess. My ugly crying again. But so they started talking until now. I thank the Lord. Like, they have a great relationship. Like, they love each other to death. And my mother-in-law is like a second mom to me. Like, I love my mother-in-law. Like, I'm very grateful for her. I feel very blessed to have her in my life. Honestly, like, I never thought that there was like any good mother-in-laws, and I could tell you good mother-in-laws do exist. She's like awesome. Like, she's been there for me all along when I needed her for anything. Like, she has always been there for me. Like, we are close, very close. And another thing that, like, I'm super grateful with her is that, like, my first two kids, obviously they're not biologically her grandkids, but my mother-in-law has never, ever, ever, and I've known her for like over 15 years. Like, honestly, my mother-in-law has never treated my first two kids any different than she has treated my daughter. That's her blood granddaughter. Honestly, she has like been awesome to them. She treats them like her own, and she gets along with them. She loves them very much. I could feel the love for her, for my kid, from her to my kids. So I'm always going to be very grateful for being that grandmother that the kids, have with her, in her. So anyways, so we go to Idaho, and we go visit her. We fall in love with the place, and at the time, obviously, I wanted to leave because I wasn't happy being in Omaha because of the memories. And we ended up moving to Idaho, Sandpoint, Idaho. So we moved to Idaho, and it was like really nice. Everything was going good. A few years there, living the life, you could say. Obviously, I still wasn't, I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. And once we're there, a few years after we were there, a couple years, the same devastating situation happened for the second time that happened and the first time that happened in Omaha. That tells you, like, try to run away from your problems. And no matter where you go, if something happens, you cannot run away from your problems. In this case, it happened again, the same situation. So it was so devastating that I was so upset at the Lord. Like, though I had already quit on him, but I was very upset at the Lord. I was like angry at him. I was like, I can't believe you allow this to happen. How could you allow a situation like this to happen? And not just one time, but twice. Like, how dare you allow this? Like, where were you when we needed you? And it was just like so many questions, so many, like, I was just upset at the Lord for not protecting us. And so after that, like, honestly, that was like when I just didn't care. After that, like, I was just like, okay, that's it. I'm not going back to church. I don't want nothing to do with the Lord. In fact, I didn't even want people like mentioning him. And it wasn't like really because, like, honestly, I know I didn't hate the Lord, but it was because I knew deep in my heart that he could change it if he wanted to in a heartbeat. I just wasn't ready. But also, when I would hear about the Lord or hear anything, even like anything, somebody could be talking about God, the radio, the music, anything. I like literally would change it or scroll or do whatever because I just didn't really want to hear anything. But it was because I was just not willing to let him in. And it was just like guilt that was getting me. Didn't want him in my life. And plus I was like extremely angry at him. And then, so this happened. Then, we dealt with that. Then my oldest, my son, he joined the military. Excuse me. He went through his rebellious age that we struggled with too. And we went through a lot. Sent him to a military school, graduated from there, came back. He said, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, like, I'm going to join the military. I think that's going to be the best thing for me. And yeah, he chose to join the military after high school. So he was 18 when he left home. And that was really hard for me because, like, I was like, oh man, like, the kids are growing, they're starting to leave. So that was like really, really hard for me to say goodbye to him when we drop him off. And so my husband being military, retired military, he's like, oh, don't be surprised if next time we see him, he's going to be married. You never know. It usually happens like that. And I'm like, oh no, he won't, blah, 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 whatever. And actually he was right. Next time we saw him, like he had gone married. So it was like just a lot of things happen at once. And then after that, like my middle one, she left too for college. And even though she was only like 3 hours away from us, like it was so hard because I'm like, oh, I call her princess, like my princess is gone. Like, no, it was so sad. Like my husband, I'd like be crying and crying in the room, and still like I wouldn't look for the Lord. Then my youngest, she went through a lot of like mental health. Well, the middle one went through her rebellious age too. We took care of that. And then obviously she did good. She left for college, like I said. And then my last one, our last one, she was very, very involved in soccer, like very involved, like in sports, in school. But then she was struggling with her mental health, and just like, I don't want to say too much about her, obviously, because it's not hers, like her things to say. I am going to say a couple things because I think it's important that this part. She went through a lot of mental health issues, and it was really hard for us as parents to see her. So I was like really devastated. We had to like put her she asked to be admitted at a mental health hospital because she was struggling with a suicide. And the reason why I say this is because it's very, very important for us parents to keep an eye on our kids and pay attention. And when our kids tell us something, like always listen, always believe your kids no matter what. Because when they're crying out for help, like as parents, our job is to be there for them. And in this case, we were there for her. And even though it was like extremely hard to go drop her off, I mean, it was devastating having to drop her off the first year. In 2019, we had her like put her in the hospital. And as a mom and dad, like my husband and I, like I remember we left crying. We actually, in fact, it was only like an hour and a half to our home. We didn't even want to leave. We stayed at a hotel across the street from the hospital where our daughter was, because we were just like, this can't be happening. Like, you always think it's going to happen to like you see it in movies, you see other people going through it, but you never think it's going to happen to like, it's going to happen in your family. Well, in our case, obviously it happened, and that and many things that we thought wasn't going to happen, and it did. And then the following year again, like she ended up in the hospital for the same reason, and suicide. And it was just like, it was really scary because like seeing your daughter go through something like so hard like that, it was so traumatizing. It was just so hard, like so hard, like sleepless nights where I wouldn't sleep at all before I went to work, nights where I only slept an hour or two because I wanted to be there for her when she was struggling. And just like seeing your daughter in so much pain. I mean, for moms, parents out there, obviously, that like when your kids suffer, we suffer. And it was like extremely, extremely hard for us, like seeing our daughter just go through all this. And I don't wish it upon any parent at all, any parent. So please, it's important that you pay attention to your children when they talk about like suicide and stuff and mental health. It's really, really important. So, with that said, she decided to leave for college, out of state. She didn't want to be there. And it was exactly the same reason like that I was doing it when we moved out of state, because I wanted to leave the past behind, not knowing it was going to haunt us again. She was trying to do the same thing. She's like, I don't want to be here. It gives me like, I just have a lot of memories here. Like I want to leave. So she went out of state for college. So yeah, once our baby left, like it was just my husband and I. We obviously became empty nesters, and a lot of parents, I'm like, a little bit of it, we're like, yay, empty nesters. Um, but all of our kids at 18, they were all out of the house, and thinking like, oh yay, we're empty nesters, woohoo. Part of us were excited, was exciting, but at the same time, it was like sad. Like I remember, like my husband would be looking for me around the house. Hun, where are you, honey? Where are you? And I'd be over here. Like I'd be crying in their bedrooms. Like it was really hard. But once the kids left and everything, I mean, like my husband and I continued, like we were already going out. Actually, I forgot to say that part. We were going out, we were partying, and I was drinking. And like a lot of my drinking was coming, like just trying to, like I was trying to like gravitate into like alcohol, um, just to help me with like out like with when I was feeling down, when I would think about the past, like I would like do that. And then, obviously started partying, drinking. We would go out on the weekends. My husband was pretty good about that. Like he would be the one to drive and I'd be the one to drink. But he was always with me, but I would manage like to disappear on him at times. Like I was so drunk that I don't remember. And like I don't want to say like, oh, like God only knows if I would have turned like into an alcoholic. I don't know. I don't think so, but I could say I wasn't an alcoholic, because I wouldn't wake up thinking, "Ooh, I'm gonna drink. Ooh, I can't wait to drink. Ooh, I can drink." Like it wasn't like that. Even though a lot of people would see our pictures and I always had a drink in my hand, but honestly, it was like more like when we went out and we wouldn't go out every weekend. There's a point like I wouldn't even touch alcohol for a whole month, or for 2 weeks, and that was like not on my mind, but obviously it was on my mind every time we went out. It was always on my mind. Like my excuse going out on the weekends was drinking. And I wasn't drinking at first like to get drunk. Like I started doing it like more often. I started getting the habit of like, if I'm gonna drink, it better be where I'm gonna get like really drunk. So yeah, so that happened. And like I said, our kids were gone and everything. So we decided to, when we were like, my husband and I would go out and everything, like now being empty nesters, my husband said like, hey, we were looking into like buying a fifth wheel and, just live in it full time and sell our house. I mean, the house was too big. I mean, it was like a 5-bedroom. It was too big for us without the kids. And for me, it was like really depressing. So he's like, yeah, well, you get to retire from the medical field. If we do this, we'll pay it off our debt and we'll do this. To fast forward, we sold our house. We bought a fifth wheel, a 40-footer. It was very exciting. We decided to go pick it up. It was in Alvin, Texas. So we made a drive to Alvin, Texas, to pick it up. And mind you, we were already like partying, drinking, and my drinking was getting a little bit out of hand. On the weekends when I would drink, like I would like bless my husband's heart, because he would say, okay, hon, it's time to go, because he was always like trying to take care of me. And he would tell me like before we drink, hon, like make sure you stay close to me, like don't take off on me. But I was those kind of like, I started getting like drinking where I would take off on him. Like I'd go to the bathroom, then I see a group of people and I was like chatter mouth, like, go talk with them. And then all of a sudden, like I would walk around like, and I can recall some situations like when I would be, when I take off. Like I remember one of the times I went close by the water and I remember this specific situation. I was really drunk, but I don't know why. Some of the situations I do remember even when I was drunk, and some of them like I totally black out where I have no idea, like until I woke up the next morning. I was like, what happened yesterday? Like I had no idea. My husband would tell me and I'd be like, what? Like really, I said that, or I did this, So just tells you like how bad I started like drinking now on the weekends. So, yeah, and he'd be like worried out of his mind, like, hon, I was looking for you. We'd go to hotels to hang out, to go like get away, go hot tub and stuff like that, because we love hot tubs. And it was just like, I don't know what was wrong with me. Like, I do that, but I remember a lot of the times when I would take off, when I would, the times that I do remember, believe it or not, I'd be like talking to the Lord at times. I'm like, like in my life with my husband, like I don't want anybody to think like, oh, she must have had it really bad because she was so depressed. Like her husband didn't. No, like honestly, like I love my husband to death. My husband is my best friend. Like we've been together 24 years. We just had our wedding anniversary, January 20th. 18 years married, but 24 altogether. Like my husband's my best friend. Like he's my soulmate. But one thing I do gotta say, like when you know the Lord, or when you have that void for the Lord, like I don't care what anybody says, nobody can feel like the Lord has to come first before anybody or anything. And if you don't have the Lord in your heart, like you're not going to be 100% happy. Like you're not going to have true happiness. And I don't care if my marriage was great with my husband. I don't care if like my relationship with my kids was good, or if I had it all. But if you don't have the Lord in your heart, and you don't put him first, like you're never gonna have true happiness. And I'll tell you that for a fact, 100%. And anybody can disagree with me, and that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. But in my case, this is my point of view, and I think it's a fact. Besides my point of view, it is a fact that if you don't have the Lord Jesus Christ in your heart, and you don't surrender and give him your life, like you're never going to know what true happiness is. I don't care if you have it all. I mean, there's a perfect example. You see celebrities, they have it all and they're still on drugs, or they try this or they do this because they're trying to find happiness in, sometimes people think having material stuff or money or whatever is the true happiness, and it's not. Don't get me wrong, money and all that is good to have, like a good job and everything. Money pays your bills, but never like you always like never put the Lord last, and that I have learned. So anyways, like I said, I had a great relationship, obviously have a great relationship with my husband. I love him. And I'd be like, I want to go out next week. And he'll be like, okay, hon, but make sure this. He'd tell me like the rules, but then I'd break the rules again. And then there's times where like I would feel so bad, and then I'd be okay. This weekend, I'm not going to, and I wouldn't drink a lot, and I'd do it for a little bit. But then every time we went out for certain situations, I just felt like, oh, I need a drink. I need a drink. I need a drink. I need a drink. And I would want to like get myself so drunk. And that was just like my problem. And so yeah, like I was saying, so that happened. We're partying, and then we sold our house. So we left to Alvin, Texas. But before, actually, I'm sorry. And like I was saying, like, believe it or not, when I was like so drunk, I would like look for the Lord, and I'd be like talking to him, like, hey, like, when am I going to go back with you? Because I hear people saying like, once you know the Lord, like you can't be away from him. Like eventually you come back to him. And I'm like, when is this going to happen? I remember being so drunk talking to the Lord, and like, I know it's wrong, but I was talking to him, and I would go some other times doing that. And anyways, like I said, we went to pick up the camper, made it a road trip all the way to Texas. It was really fun. My husband and I had an awesome time. It was just really, really nice. So when we got to Texas, we picked it up, and on the way there, actually, I was starting already like to want to get closer to God, because I just was thirsty, hungry for him. And there's a void in me that I needed to be filled. And I knew it was the Lord that I needed. So I was already like, I even took my Bible, I remember, in the front seat with me while traveling. So the Lord can like protect us and everything. But I was already starting like slowly, like try to, get involved with the Lord stuff. And so on the way back from picking up our camper, we were going to head back to Idaho to make our rounds, to visit family and, just live the life. And on the way back, our daughter, the youngest, was going to move in. Actually, she had moved to Colorado, but then she had moved. She was going to start college or something like that. Um, I might have said the story a little bit like whatever. Um, so we went and met her in Fort Collins, Colorado, because she was going to CSU for college and she was going to get her dorm. Well, around that time, I ended up getting sick. So, and I know I had said that she already moved out. We sold a house, but school didn't start till like after. That's what it was. I was getting confused. School didn't start. So by the time we were um, um, there, so we went in and visited her. When we came back, we came and visited her, met her in Fort Collins, Colorado. So I was feeling sick, cough, cold, fever, sore throat, and this was 2021 when COVID it was going around. And I mean, I've been around a lot of people that had COVID in 2020. When I was working at the clinic, I was the one that was doing like testing patients, and I never got it. And then this time, like when we were traveling and went to Texas on the way back, like I said, I realized like I had no scent, no sense of smell or taste. And my daughter, poor, bless her heart, she was like, "Mom, like I'm not gonna be able to go in my dorm. Like they're not. If you have COVID, most likely you do. I'm not gonna be able to get into my dorm. Blah blah blah." Well, it did happen. Unfortunately, she caught it too. They isolated her in a different apartment until like she started school. And then she missed like her first day of school or something. And then in the meantime, we were at a campground in Fort Collins, and our middle daughter was with us too. I remember she was with us. She'd come down to visit and be there for her sister. So what happened next? So like I said, I started getting sick. I got up to use the restroom and I couldn't breathe. I was having like shortness of breath. I was getting really scared. And my husband took me to a hospital in Fort Collins to be seen in the emergency room. But obviously they didn't let him go in. So he had to wait for me in the parking lot inside the truck. So as he's waiting for me, being seen, I had fever of like over 102, I believe. I was just miserable. I was feeling so sick, very sick. And I knew like I knew it was COVID. So when I went in there, the first question that this doctor asked me and was if I got the COVID vaccine. And I said, no, I did not. I was thinking, he was going to not discriminate because I had the COVID vaccine. I didn't have the COVID vaccine. And his face just showed it that he was like so like angry. He didn't even get close to me at first. Like he was like standing by the door. And then he says he was going to get somebody to, I think they did x-rays if I'm correct, x-rays. And then they listened to my lungs. And he came back and then they did a COVID test. And then they said, well, you do have COVID. Like, and then he asked me, well, if you don't have it, are you thinking about getting it? And I said, no, I'm not thinking about getting it. That's just my personal opinion. I don't want it. And everybody is entitled to if they want to get a vaccine or not. And I told him no. So after that, I mean, he was already treating me so different. And he was treating me like so bad. I wasn't feeling good. I remember I was just like just staring at him like, why is he treating me like this? But I was so sick. And then he says, okay, I'm going to send the nurse. I'm going to send the nurse to bring you some medicine. I said, well, can you give me at least like an inhaler or give me like some kind of medicine to help me with the cough? Because the cough was like so bad. And being in the medical field, like, there was like some pills that we could give for cough. There was like something he could have gave me at least to help with some of my symptoms. I understand not everything, but he chose just to give me Tylenol. He goes, no, you're just going to get Tylenol and see what happens when you don't get the COVID vaccine. And he was just like I felt like I was being bullied by him. And he left and I felt worse. Felt very, very, very worse afterwards. I remember walking out to the parking lot and walked to the parking lot and my husband like saw me coming, and I was just crying and crying and crying. And he's like, "What's wrong?" I said, and I just explained to him everything, like the way I got treated, and he only gave me Tylenol. And I said, um, I don't want to be here. Can you just like take me home? And I was just crying because I didn't feel good. And my husband was pretty upset. He wanted to go back in there and talk to the doctor, but I just didn't want him to. So we left. We were at the campground, and I got up to the bathroom again. And when I got up, like I was like I could not breathe at all. It was very, very scary. And my husband's like, you know what? We're leaving. So we packed up and we hooked up the truck and took our fifth wheel and we started driving. Our goal was to get to Idaho because my doctor was there. And that's where I used to work. So I knew I was going to get the care once we got there, but we still had quite a few hours. So I told my husband, like, just give me some hauls. My husband, like, was so helpful. Like, I'm always going to be so grateful with my husband. Like, he took so much great care of me. Anything I needed. I mean, he would walk me to the bathroom. Like, honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better husband at all. Like, I am, like, so grateful with him because he was with me through all my hard times. And so he got me a bag of Halls. I was so sick and tired of eating so many Halls, and he was getting worried for me. And he says, you know what, hon? Let's go. We're going to pack up and we're going to make our drives until we get to Idaho so you can get seen. If we have to stop to another hospital, we'll do it. But let's get out of Colorado because the way I was treated there, like, he didn't want to take me to another hospital in the same state because the way they were. So we drove and drove all night, and we ended up in Wyoming. And it was like in the middle of nowhere. And this is why I tell you that the Lord he was with us all along. Like, he never left me. Like, he never left me. Even though I didn't deserve him, I wasn't worthy of him. Like, he never, ever left me. And when I tell you, like, we were in the middle of nowhere, obviously we weren't familiar with anything. We found a KOA, like, campground around Wyoming. And what are the chances, like, that there was this open spot? I mean, everything was, like, worked out, like, perfect. It's like we had made reservations and they were waiting for us, put it that way. So we went, we parked, and then I was getting worse, my breathing. My husband was already, like, he picked up the phone and started calling, like, hospitals, but for some reason we were getting, like, a very, very far hospital from us, like, way, way far. And whoever he was talking to, I guess, wasn't understanding, or, like, we just weren't communicating good, that she thought that we were at a different place. And she's like, no, you're, like, hours away from our hospital. But to make a long story short, like, she's like, oh, wait, you're close here, blah, blah, blah. Told us how to get there. My husband's like, come on, let's go. I'm going to take you. And I'm not going to lie, like, I was very scared because a lot of people, passed away from COVID in 2020 and 2021. And I was, like, really scared because my breathing was really, really bad. So I ended up in the hospital. He took me there. Obviously, he had to wait in the waiting room because when he called, like, he was on speaker, and the nurse that was there was listening to my breathing just from, like, the speakerphone. And I remember clearly when she asked my husband, is that your wife in the background? And he said, yeah, like, you need to bring her, like, immediately. Her breathing doesn't sound good. And I had the oximeter, and it was, like, in the 60s. It was, like, extremely 60s, 70s, upper 70s. I don't know. No, 60 something to 70. It was, like, really, really bad because I was having a hard time breathing. And then when he gave her the numbers, like, they're like, you need to bring her. So at first I didn't want to go, obviously, but then I started getting sick and, not breathing good. It was scaring me. So he took me. He was in the waiting room. As soon as I got there, they were, like, waiting for me already. Had a wheelchair. They got me in. They laid me in a bed. They started doing all this drawing blood. And I mean, I had an amazing group of people, nurses, doctors. Like, the Lord was there taking care of me. I know 100% for a fact that he was there. These wonderful people, like it was nothing like the other hospital. Nothing, nothing, nothing. They still hadn't done x-rays. They still hadn't done any of the stuff that the other place did do. And mind you, that was just like not even, probably 24 hours the most from one place to the other, and not even close to 24. I think it was like when we got to the other hospital, because we drove at night. And my husband was like worried for me in the waiting room, and these doctors, like I said, they were like awesome. They were like taking care of me. And then they asked me, they say, why did I wait? I said, no, I do have COVID. And they're like, how do you know? So I explained to him the situation, like when I went to the other hospital in Colorado. And they said, the doctor, I remember one of the older doctors, he was nodding his head, and he was pretty upset. He was not happy at all. He was like, I'm telling you right now that we don't care whether you got the vaccine or not. We are going to take care of you. We will never discriminate anybody because of their preference, religion, or anything, or race. We are going to take care of you because you need us right now. I mean, the way they were talking to me, the way they were with me, it was so nice. And I had oxygen, and they took me to get x-rays. And I remember the doctor going in, and he told me, he's like, hi, honey. Like, and he was like talking to me. And then he says, I just want to let you know that there's no way you're going to leave this hospital today. You will be admitted. When he told me that, like, I got really scared. Like, I got really, really scared. And I looked at him just like that because I have oxygen. I just looked at him. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. He says, your lungs are so bad. Your both lungs, like the x-rays are showing every single thing is full. It's full of, like, he explained it, but that's why I couldn't breathe. I was having a hard time breathing. And he's like, this is like, we cannot like let you go home. You're going to be admitted. Unfortunately, you will be here for quite a few days. And I looked at him, and I remember I started getting scared. And that's when I started, like, honestly, like, thinking, oh, Lord, what is going to happen with me? I asked him, can I use the phone to call my husband because he's in the waiting room? And he said, well, we already sent a nurse to talk to him. And I said, but I want to call him. Is that okay? And then he said, yeah. So I called, and I was like holding it inside because I didn't want to scare my husband. But I was really scared. And I know I'm making this story long, but this is like something that I really went through, and I want like people to know like how scary this process was. And I remember picking up the phone, and I just told him, I said, hey, I said, I'm going to be admitted. I'm not going to leave the hospital. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, the doctor told me that I can't leave. And then I just couldn't hold it. I was trying so hard, and I just started crying and crying. I said, I'm scared. I'm really scared. I'm really scared. I kept on telling him. He's like, no, hon, don't cry. Everything's going to be okay. And my poor husband was like so scared. And so, yeah, the doctors took really, really good care of me. I had an amazing doctor. My first doctor was like really good. All the nurses, every single nurse, every front desk that I had to talk to, passed by when they were on the way to taking me to my room, were great to me, great to me. And I'll tell you guys the name of this hospital because I think they deserve their name to be out there, because I feel if it wasn't for the Lord, first of all, I wouldn't be here. But honestly, the Lord put these wonderful people in my life in this hospital because it was in his plans. And I ended up with a great hospital. And I'm always going to be very, very thankful with this hospital and the staff, from the front desk to the people on the phone, to the nurses, to the doctors. They were amazing. So they took me up to the room. It was a room that had like all these weird machines because like people couldn't go in, like they had to be all covered. I don't know. I forgot. I'm sorry. I should know this, is I'm in the medical field, but I should know it, but I can't remember. It was like a big tube that was coming out of the window, like all the bad air, the COVID stuff, I guess, that were kicking it out. Something like that, they explained. Um, at this point, like I was feeling more and more sick. Like I was just like thinking like I'm not gonna make it through. I'm not gonna make it through. I was really, really scared, but I was trying to be strong for my husband. And then I asked like where my husband was, and one of the nurses said, like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm gonna go get him right now. I'm like, is he gonna be able to come up here? And the amazing thing about all this too is that usually like hospitals, when you had COVID, they won't let family in. Like my husband was by my side 24/7. He stayed with me throughout the whole process of being hospitalized, and that was almost 8 days. So that tells you like how great they were. Like they got him a bed there with me. He caught COVID. He already had it, but they were like awesome. They were so good to me. I mean, my other clinic, since he was a patient, they sent him medication to this hospital. The hospital gave him the treatment. Since my daughter was also a patient before there, like where I used to work, they sent the medication to the hospital. And the front desk lady, I told her, well, not me, my daughter and my other daughter that was there with me, because she ended up driving from Idaho to come and see me because my husband called her crying, saying that I wasn't doing good. So she got scared and drove down. Bless her heart too, my daughter. I'm very thankful. I have great, wonderful kids. Like, and I'm pretty sure my son would have been there if he wasn't in the military deployed. No, he wasn't deployed at the time, but he was in the military. And my other daughter, if she didn't have COVID, if we would have told her at first, like, she would have been there in a heartbeat. We were just trying to like avoid scaring everybody, but like I said, the clinic where I used to work in Idaho, like they sent my daughter some medication for her COVID and stuff like that for symptoms. And the front desk staff literally at this hospital, I'll tell you the name. The hospital's name is Memorial Converse. I actually have it somewhere right here. Okay, Memorial Hospital, Converse County, and it is in Douglas, Wyoming. And I'll tell you, like, I've even told my husband, like, if I ever get sick, drive me all the way to Memorial Hospital because they were like amazing. And I want to like apologize for not remembering, obviously, like my doctor's names that saw me. Like, I don't remember all of them. And I'm trying to look here in one of my papers, but I could remember one of them. Like the name. And his name was Dr. Fars. And I'll tell you, he has been one of the best doctors I've ever seen, if not the best. And this doctor took so well care of me. He would check up on me the same as the other doctors. But this doctor, for some reason, like, just like, it stayed with me. Like, he was like a different kind of doctor. Like, you could tell he was a man of God. I know he was. But he took very, very good care of me. And like I said, they went in, got my husband and brought him up to the, like, one of the floors where they took me where I was isolated. And as soon as my husband walks in, he sees me with all these machines and everything. He just looked at me, and the first thing he does as he walks in, he's like, no, you gotta fight. You gotta fight. You can't give up. You're gonna have to fight. And when I saw him and heard him say that, it broke my heart because he was so scared. He was super scared. Very, very scared of what was going to happen to me, because what I didn't know is one of the nurses went downstairs, and when they went and talked to him, he said he saw her face. And he asked the nurse, like, is my wife going to be okay? Is she going to be okay? And he says that the nurse looked at him and then put her head down, and she just turned around and said, I don't know. That's how bad I was. And that scared him a lot. So when he went up to the whatever floor they had me, he was crying, and he went in, and it scared me more because when I saw him, I'm like, oh Lord, I'm not going to make this. I'm not going to make it. And it was like very scary. And this doctor was so nice. And he was like, he's like, all you could do is pray, just pray. And and leave it in God's hands. And like just the way he would talk to me, like gave me peace. But also at the same time, I was like really scared because I knew there was a possibility that I wasn't going to make it. I mean, I was just getting worse. I couldn't even move a bit without like my breathing being horrible. And I just thought I'm not going to make it. And I was already planning like to write something on my phone, on my cell phone, like to my kids, to my husband, like saying goodbye to them. And then the worst thing about it was like I said, I'm gonna die without like repenting and going to the Lord. And that was like the hard thing for me. Like I didn't do it. I wasn't even doing it there at the hospital. I kind of was just like, I'm done, basically. But once again, the Lord had me again. He had me again. I know it's been like long stories, but you have to like know the details in between. Um, this hospital like was awesome and took very care of me and all the nurses and everybody. I want to thank my husband for staying there. Though he was also very sick, he stayed right next to me in a bed and took care of me every time I needed like to move or like my pillow moved. Like he would like fix it for me. He like put socks on me, take it off. It's embarrassing, but I had to go potty in a bucket. And he'd like pick it up like nothing and throw it. And I was like so embarrassed. But my husband didn't care because he loves me. And then my daughter, my middle one, she was there and very helpful. She went and took care of our dogs that were in the camper. And like, she was so amazing too. I just love all my kids to death because I got to thank the Lord because they all have great hearts. And they've always been there for us whenever we needed them. So yeah, I was there, like I said. I was there really scared and said, I'm just gonna die here. So ended up being there 8 days. And I'm gonna stop the video here because I believe this is where I left out on my other one, the continuation of this one. But like I said, I lost this video. I probably said some things, some others I don't remember, like if I missed anything on the one I had deleted. But I'm just very grateful that the Lord healed me from the COVID. And yeah, and I'm here. So once again, the Lord had me. So the next video will continue with the remaining of my testimony. Thank you.